Hello everyone and welcome to another top 10 list. This will probably be the only other top 10 list I do this year, and much like the last list I did, it describes favourite things of a thing that I enjoy. In other words, I love me some UFC, and there was really no shortage of amazing fights in the wreckage of a year that was 2016. Honorable mentions go to Dominic Cruz against Cody Garbrandt near the end of 2016, John Johnson against John Lineker, even though he didn't win Fight of the Night, it should have, and Steve Bussey against Sean O'Connell. Just amazing. So without further ado and a surprisingly short intro, let's kick this off. These are my top 10 favourite UFC fights of 2016. Let's get this on like Donkey Kong on his honeymoon with his lovely gorilla wife. Number 10. We start with a high-flying, all-action brawl in the cage. On August 6th at a Fight Night event at the Vivint Smart Home Arena in Salt Lake City, the first time that the UFC has ever been to Utah, flyweights Yair Alpantero Rodriguez and Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres, I just love his nickname, sorry, took each other on in the main event. And what a fantastic main event it was. Both men chased each other down, showcased fantastic striking and just great fighting in general, and put on one hell of a main event to cap off what was a really good night. It was a good card. Yair Rodriguez is one of the best flyweights in a long time, and despite the fact that Caceres has never really managed to crack the upper echelon, in this fight he proved that he can still hang tough with the best of them. Sure, Caceres won, but he wasn't disappointed in his performance. It was a close fight with... I wrote that wrong. Caceres lost, but he wasn't disappointed by his performance. It was a close fight, with Rodriguez taking the win by split decision. It really could have gone either way, though, and it was a great fight with some amazing, just lots of flying around and really great action. Flyweights are hard to keep an eye on, yet they're just so much fun to watch. Also, I'm totally keeping that script screw up in the video, so yeah. I don't do anything perfectly. I don't try to. And with number 9, we carry things on with one of the fights nearer the end of the year. On November 5th in Mexico City at the Arena Ciudad de Mexico, in Mexico obviously, the Ultimate Fighter Latin America Season 3 finale was held. Now, I don't get to watch those seasons, or like the Brazil seasons or the more international ones, because I can't find them. But the card was definitely worth the watch. In the UFC Fight Night main event, because it was a fight night, Tony El Kikoy Ferguson took on former lightweight champion Rafael dos Anjos in a 5-round war. Both had a lot to prove. Dos Anjos wanted to prove they could still fight with the best even without the gold around his waist, having lost it to Eddie Alvarez in his last fight. And Ferguson was looking to extend his 8-fight winning streak to 9. And that is exactly what he did, putting on a soulful performance against the former champ. Getting the win was not easy, despite it being a unanimous decision victory, but Ferguson's star rose brighter in the evening, while Rafael will not dim anytime soon. He's always just a lot of fun to watch, as is Ferguson. I'm hoping he gets a title shot. Number 8. Sometimes a fight makes the best of the year list because people want to see what happens when you put two fighters who have never met before in the cage and just see what happens, really. Other times it's because it's a highly anticipated rematch. This fight is definitely the latter. On October 8th at the Manchester Arena in Manchester, obviously, newly crowned champion and first ever Brit to hold UFC gold, Michael the Count Bisping, would defend his belt for the first time at UFC 199 against Dan Hendo Henderson, the man who knocked him out 7 years prior. What happened was sheer greatness in the rematch. It's well worth noting that Dan's best moments were in the first 2 rounds, where he knocked Bisping down with his signature vicious big right hands. Seriously, Henderson's big right hand is the best right hand ever. But Bisping survived and managed to tough out, landing amazing combos and volume on the veteran, and having him hurt several times. Bisping took a close unanimous decision when defending his belt, whilst Henderson announced his retirement after the fight was over. He went out on his sword and put on his best performance ever in a high-stakes rematch. Enjoy your retirement, Hendo. You've earned it. Congrats to both men. It was a really, really good fight. Number 7, and we go from near the end of 2016 to about the beginning. On January 2nd at UFC 195 in Las Vegas at the MGM Grand Garden Arena, ruthless Robbie Lawler would defend his welterweight title for the second time against the always dangerous Carlos the Natural Born Killer Condit. Both men are known for putting on extremely exciting fights and going to just straight up wars, and this time was no different. Also possibly the bloodiest fight on this list, these two men swung at each other with everything that they had, resulting in Condit bleeding heavily from the side of his head, and Robbie suffering the worst busted lip I've ever seen in the UFC. Seriously, it was like he was trying to grow a second mouth or something. Ugh. Anyway, back to the fight itself. The fans knew that they were going to get greatness from the outset, and they were absolutely right. Robbie took a split decision when keeping his belt for a little while longer, while Condit proved that he can still remain in the title picture as a solid competitor. Number 6. Let's stay in Vegas for the time being, in the same arena, just for a little bit longer. Taking place on July 8th to cap off the TUF 23 season finale was the coaches fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, strawweight champion, defending her belt against longtime rival Claudinha Gadelha. Now, this would be their second fight after the controversial split decision win for Joanna in December of 2014 in their first fight. But at that point, Joanna wasn't champion and Claudia wasn't really established enough in the strawweight division yet. Now it's hard to picture the division without these two women pretty much spearheading it with their rivalry. The season of Tough itself was pretty good, and the rivalry between Joanna and Claudia erupted several times during training sessions, the coach's challenge, and so on. When the two did have their rematch eventually, it was fantastic, going leaps and bounds over their previous encounter, which is pretty damn good in my opinion. Joanna and Claudia had a brilliant war that surpassed everything that the first one put on. Joanna won by unanimous decision, but as with most fights on this list, and with the ones coming soon, it was not easy. The two sort of showed respect for each other afterwards, but the fact is that this fight could be the fight that defines women's strawweights. Definitely worth a match. Worth a watch, I meant to say, accidentally pause on it. Yeah, move on. Number 5. It's a 3-spot stay in Vegas, everybody. Well, hey. Now, when these two first fought, nobody expected any of these three things to happen. That the one that they thought would lose would win, that the one expected to lose would get a finish in their first outing, and that there would be a rematch not long after. Thankfully, everybody was completely wrong. At UFC 196, Conor McGregor jumped to the welterweight division for the first time in his career, taking on Nate Diaz and losing by second-round submission from a rear naked choke after a pretty good fight. Their rematch at UFC 202, though, in August, leaps and bounds above their first fight. While seen as one of the more controversial calls at the end with McGregor winning by majority decision, you can't deny that everything was there to make this match great. McGregor's obsession and passion for the rematch just showed his passion for the fight game in general, and Diaz has always had a never-say-die attitude that reflected himself perfectly in a hugely entertaining 5-round scrap, which probably made most professional MMA journalists fight of the year, and it makes one of my fights of the year as well. Really, really good. Number 4. Now we move from Vegas to Canada, which I'm pretty sure every American wants to do right now after what happened in November of 2016. Never mind that. We move over to the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, Ontario, Canada for UFC 206. On December 10th, we had one hell of a card that night, stacked from bottom to top with just amazing matches and great finishes. But the one that stood out that nobody thought would stood out was easily Cub Swanson against Doo Ho, the Korean Superboy Choi. Now, these two featherweights are well known for their KO power, with Swanson being known as more aggressive whilst Choi is more accurate, kind of like McGregor or Anderson Silva. Their styles went together well enough, and with the winner being hard-pressed to pick from the start. Of course, Choi was riding a great winning streak, having won all of his UFC bouts until this point by knockout, with the latter two of those getting in Performance of the Night bonuses, whilst Cub was bouncing back on his own winning streak with 2 unanimous decision wins in a row at this point. Cub managed to extend that streak, taking another very close unanimous decision win and proving that, despite being somewhat of a veteran nowadays, he can still hang with the best of them. And also proving that Choi, while known for his knockout power and accuracy, can go the distance, and he can put on a damn great battle doing it. Much respect to both men. Number 3, and for the first time ever, the UFC hit up the much acclaimed Madison Square Garden in New York City, New York, on November 12th for UFC 205. It was truly a night of history, with 3 titles being defended in the main fights, and a champion versus champion match as the main event to boot. In the co-main event, Tyrone the Chosen One Woodley was looking to defend his welterweight belt for the first time since beating Robbie Lawler to get it. His first contender, karate and kickboxing expert Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. 2 amazing athletes, both capable of ending fights in an instant. Tyrone's power against Stephen's accuracy, strength against technical striking and speed. While the first round did start a bit stale, mostly because nobody actually did anything for a bit until near the end, the fight itself after that point was just absolutely brilliant. Tyrone kept his belt, although he didn't technically win, with the fight ending a majority draw, making it the first and only fight on this list to end in a draw. It did prove that Tyrone could go the distance, though, as many had doubted that about him, and it also proved that Thompson has a wicked chin on him. He took some amazing shots. It was a brilliant fight on such a huge, historic night in UFC history, and just in fighting history in general. It was really, really good. Now we're at number 2, and we're going to go back to near the beginning of 2016, and we have another UFC fight night. On January 17th at the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts, Dominic the Dominator Cruz would return in the hopes of regaining the UFC bantamweight title from TJ Dillashaw, who had won the belt in Cruz's absence. Why was Cruz out for so long? Well, the short answer is a shitload of leg injuries and knee injuries, so we'll just leave it at that. Since winning the belt from Helen the Baron Barrett back in 2014, Dillashaw seemed unstoppable, mostly due to pretty much copying everything that Dominic does when it comes to fighting in the octagon. Cruz returned near the end of 2014 to fight Takeya Mizukaki, beating him by first-round knockout, but was then injured again before returning against Dillashaw. People expected fireworks nonetheless, and that is exactly what they got. Easily Cruz's closest fight is battle with Garbrandt notwithstanding. He managed to get a very narrow split decision victory and reclaim his bantamweight belt, which he never really lost in the first place. For a brief while, the king of being on the bantamweights was back, and the fans welcomed his return with open arms. And TJ is still going strong. I'm always looking forward to seeing him fight. Now we're at number one, and I know, I'm biased, but that's kind of the entire point of top 10 lists, especially mine. My number one pick is no different to the biases. On February 27th, at the O2 Arena in London, England, Michael the Count Bisping would have his first fight of 2016 against former UFC middleweight champion Anderson the Spider Silva, returning from his win to a no contest against Nick Diaz at the start of 2015. This was a dream fight for fans as everyone wanted this fight before, but it just never materialised. Anderson was kicking ass left, right and centre, while Bisping was always on the cusp of the title shot, but could never fully grab the brass ring. Luckily, there was no belt on the line, just a big answer to the question, what if? What if these two finally met in the octagon? I'll tell you what would happen, absolute fucking perfection. Despite the controversial ending to round 3, the fight itself was a pure shot of adrenaline. Both guys were equally hurt and exhausted by the end of it, and so was I personally. Bisping won by unanimous decision, but it was as close a unanimous decision as you can get in a 5-round fight, and Silva proved that he doesn't need to defend a belt to be the best. Also, this fight started off what I call the year of Bisping in 2016, where he first beat Silva, then defeat Rockhold by knockout to become the first British UFC champion, before capping off with his win over Dan Henson, as mentioned earlier. For those reasons and many more, this is my fight of the year. Well, last year, if you think about it. Bisping and Silva both fought very, very well. They finally gave me the answer to the question. It's an amazing fight. It really, really is. Everyone wanted to see two greats, the best British fighter against the best Brazilian fighter, and this is what they got. And I couldn't be happier about it. So that'll pretty much do it for this list. There's really not much else to say. I hope that you enjoyed my rambling and stuff. Also, my new backtracking episode, I'm going to start writing for it tomorrow because it's stained. The debut episode is stained as requested by my friend Scarlett. So, yeah, that's going to be a thing that's going to happen soon. Just depending on how many albums I have. I think it's like 8, I don't know. We'll get to that whenever we get to it. So I'll see you all next time. Take care. Peace.